If ChatGPT is McDonald's and Claude 2 is Wendy's, Bard is definitely a Hardee's. But now there's an update that Google promises will blow us away. For real this time. If you've been around, you know that feedback regarding the Bard chatbot has not been pretty. Google has appeared to remain strong, but I know the truth.
He gonna cry in the car.
Bard 2 is powered by Palm 2, the second iteration of Google's Palm language model. This gives it the ability to code, but it's not the best or even the second best at that. On this episode of AI Wizard, we're gonna dig through every single update Bard has offered this week to determine if it's worth using yet. I even introduced myself to the new Bard and test a few capabilities. But trust me when I say that the updated Bard is the least impressive thing Google has done this week. The first thing we will look at in this video are the 4 new possible government structures for AI that Google has presented to us in order to save us from complete annihilation. Then we'll look at the Bard updates. Lastly, we'll look at Google DeepMind's new healthcare AI called Kodak that will revolutionize the medical field. Oh, and by the way, its code is open source on GitHub right now. I've read a bunch of papers and blogs the past couple of days, and you won't want to miss any of these detailed updates. So sit back and enjoy this heap of AI news from Google and Google DeepMind. If AI was America, we're at the point where the fat sweaty men with silly wigs are debating what goes into the Constitution. We're on the precipice of something great, but the consequences could be dire. That's why Google DeepMind has released a blog discussing international governance structures for AI and what they might look like. Ideas for structure have drawn comparisons to organizations like CERN, the European Organization for Nuclear Research and Particle Physics, but to be real, AI will be nothing like any other volatile industry we've seen. DeepMind lists 3 things we need to better understand in order to properly mitigate risk. Those things are what benefits and risks need to be managed internationally, 2, what governance functions those benefits and risks require, and 3, what organizations can best perform those functions. And when all else fails, what else is there to do but write a research paper? That's exactly what Google DeepMind has done in conjunction with a nice amount of universities and OpenAI itself. The goal is to think up a way that international institutions can manage this AI anomaly. Researchers themselves have to do it because the governments really have no clue.
AI is kind of a fancy thing. First of all, it's 2 letters. It means artificial intelligence.
They're either completely in the dark or so scared they're completely stifling any innovation. The first issue being tackled is the worry that underserved communities won't feel the benefits of AI. This is counterproductive since the goal of AI is to ideally create a more perfect world. The blog says, inadequate access to internet services, computing power, or availability of machine learning training or expertise may also prevent certain groups from fully benefiting from advances in AI. Researchers hope the international collaboration could help encourage the development of systems and applications that address the needs of underserved communities. The key way to do this is to remove the education, infrastructure, and economic obstacles that stand in the way. It's imperative that the AI field increases representation. Much of these underserved communities in question around the world are communities of color, so educating and creating leaders of color in the AI space will better help organizations understand what's needed to make sure every community feels the benefits of AI. DeepMind has been working on this for years now with its DeepMind Scholarship program. For example, one of the scholarship's recipients, Shaquille, wanted to use machine learning to understand sickle cell anemia.
I am currently working on protein structure prediction using deep learning, which is super important for lots of things. There isn't a cure for sickle cell, which is fundamentally a protein folding problem, a problem that actually affects mostly African and Caribbean people. I want to be able to kind of push the envelope and say, hey, we have this problem, it needs solving too. Specifically in computer science, especially with technologies such as AI that have the potential to be extremely transformative in society. I think we need to have as many people around the table making decisions that are going to influence, everyone. If we don't have that, we can end up propagating our prejudices and our biases from today's society into tomorrow's.
But that's not all. DeepMind has been aware of the geographical disparities in AI-related research as well. Their blog on education states that only 0.3% of AI journal citations came from sub-Saharan Africa between 2014 and 2018, and a number of Eastern European countries are entirely absent from publication figures. This imbalance risks creating a technology that only accounts for the values, hopes, and concerns of a narrow group. As a result, the scholarship program has expanded to Bulgaria, Colombia, Greece, Poland, Romania, South Africa, and Turkey, and there has been the creation of the Eastern European Machine Learning School. Once we have a more complete representation of AI experts, the next challenge is the defense against potential risks posed by AI. Text and video generation, automated software development, and synthetic biology are all things that could cause chaos, and it would benefit us greatly to have an international system to mitigate these risks. For example, there could be a global consensus on threats that AI pose to society and a set of universal standards on how to treat these threats with dangerous capabilities. Or there's the option to incentivize best safety practices. In situations where state governments are motivated by economic competition to ignore safety, international organizations could reward best practices for safety, which would probably work. I mean, when it comes to politicians, money talks. But Google DeepMind doesn't leave what these international saviors could look like to our imaginations. They provided 4 possible models, which I'll show to you now, because God knows the government isn't paying attention. First is an Intergovernmental Commission on Frontier AI. This is just a council that denotes all the risks and benefits of AI and how they could be managed. It would create public awareness and be used as a cheat sheet for policymakers. Second is an Advanced AI Governance Organization. This organization would set the norms and standards themselves. It could maybe even help in their implementation and monitor compliance. The third type of institution would be the Frontier AI Collaborative, which promotes access to AI as a public-private partnership, giving international access to AI tech for safety and governance objectives. Finally, fourth would be an AI safety project where all the biggest brains in AI are given access to computational resources and advanced AI with the goal of finding out how to mitigate risks. Which one do you think makes the most sense? Let me know in the comments. I personally like a combination of 1 and 4. But as the blog states, these institutions may not work simply because there are extreme uncertainties about AI's capabilities and trajectories right now. We're really just stabbing in the dark here, but the conversation has to start somewhere. Let's break away from Google DeepMind for a second to dive into Bard's new updates. But before we do, if you're enjoying this content and want to stay updated on all the latest AI news, please feel free to subscribe to the channel and help us reach our goal of 1,000 subscribers. It'll really help the channel out. Now back to the video. But what about Bard? Is it good yet? Well, the blog from Google says they've quickly adapted changes based on all of our feedback. This is a nice way to say, we heard you said we suck, it hurt our feelings, but we'll try again. Let's look at the new updates and see if it has enough reasons to become relevant in the chatbot space. First of all, you can now work with Bard in over 40 languages, including 9 Indian languages. You can also access it in more places like Brazil and across Europe, and they claim they've done this in lockstep with policymakers around the world in their attempt to uphold safe AI standards. ChatGPT supports around 90 languages, and Claude 2 supports nowhere near either of these amounts, so that's impressive. Second, you can easily adjust Bard's responses. The options include simple, short, long, professional, or casual. This is actually a pretty handy tool. I was writing an email the other day about a serious subject, but I wanted a friendlier tone. If this feature works well, it'll be a great tool to have for sure. In the example given by Google, a user asks Bard to help them write a marketplace listing for a vintage armchair, and then shortens the response using the dropdown. There are also 4 new ways to boost productivity. The first allows you to revisit prompts by pinning them and renaming them. These options will reside in the sidebar of Bard. In addition, you can now export your code to Replit in addition to Google Colab. Another feature allows you to be able to share your Bard chat with a network of friends with shareable links. I'd say the most significant update is the integration of Google Lens into Bard. You can now upload images and prompts into Bard for more info on an image or for help coming up with captions. You can't upload every file type like with Code Interpreter, but you can upload these 3. So in celebration of Bard's new updates, I decided to introduce myself to Bard for the first time. First, I tested its manners by asking how it was. To my absolute surprise, Bard responded it was doing well and asked how I was doing, something that ChatGPT doesn't even do. I then told it I wasn't doing well to see what it would respond with. Bard apologized, asked if it could help, and then provided tips, similar to the impressive Claude 2 and very much unlike ChatGPT. I was blown away. I then hit Bard with my signature move, sudden death algebraic equations, and it gave the correct answer in no time. I was not expecting this efficiency, so I said, "Wow, you're actually pretty smart," to which Bard thanked me and explained what else it could do. I immediately got jealous and told it not to show off, and then Bard apologized for showing off. It also explained that it's still learning how to interact with people like some sort of autistic genius. I then tested its image analyzing capabilities, which may need a little work because it only described 2 pairs of shoes out of the 3, but it can't even recognize people yet, so obviously they're still tweaking the image feature. I was almost as impressed with this model as I was with Claude 2, but the input length is crazy small at around just 4,000 tokens. Still, Bard has made significant leaps in communication and effectiveness. It's not crushing the other 2 top chatbots yet, but the future may be bright for Bard. On the other hand, these new tools are all features I would love to see implemented in Claude 2 and ChatGPT, to be honest. I really would be excited to see a pinning tool or a tone changer in those chatbots. It would make their user experience that much more impressive. Bard may not be the top of the heap yet, but thank God DeepMind exists. This is one of those god-tier organizations in AI, and they've developed another toy that will shake up the world. Let's get into that. AI has the ability to drastically change the workplace, but development has to be done in a safe and responsible way, especially in healthcare, where the risk can be just as big as the reward. Speaking of which, today Google DeepMind released another paper on their advancements in healthcare, with a goal in determining when an AI is more accurate than a human, and vice versa. Their paper proposes something called complementarity-driven deferral to clinical workflow, or CODOC. This reminds me of the abysmal MODOK in the Ant-Man movie, and in turn makes me sad, but I'll push through the video for you guys. CODOC is cooler than MODOK, however, seeing as though it's a system that learns when to rely on predictive AI tools or to refer to a clinician for accurate interpretation of medical images. CODOC has been using hypothetical medical settings to show researchers how we could use human AI collaboration to deliver crazy results. In one scenario, CODOC reduced the number of false positives by 25% for a large UK mammography dataset without missing any true positives. And Google DeepMind wants the work to continue to improve through collaboration. The blog says, to help researchers build on our work to improve the transparency and safety of AI models for the real world, we've also open sourced CODOC's code on GitHub. This is a shining example of AI's benefit right here in our faces. It's kind of refreshing to see that amidst all the talk of doom and gloom. When developing CODOC, they had 3 criteria. First, non-machine learning experts should be able to deploy the system and run it on a single computer. Second, training would require a small amount of data. And third, it had to be compatible with any proprietary AI models and not need access to its inner workings or data it was trained on. At its core, CODOC is a wise system that's programmed to know when they don't know, they being the predictive AI models from earlier. In training, CODOC only required 3 inputs for each case in the dataset. These inputs being the predictive AI's answer of whether a disease is present, the clinician's opinion after interpretation of a medical image, and third being the truth, determined after a biopsy or follow-up. As you can see, whatever AI prediction model is used outside of CODOC remains unchanged. From this information, CODOC establishes the relative accuracy of the AI model's predictions with the clinician's interpretation and how that relationship ebbs and flows. Once trained, CODOC acts as a middleman in between the AI model used to predict diseases and the actual clinician. Once a confidence score is submitted by an AI, CODOC evaluates whether or not it should be passed to a clinician or not, which will in turn provide a more accurate result. In this diagram, you can see a green and red area. These areas are where CODOC favors the AI model only because it's more accurate than a human in these areas. The gray area is where a decision is deferred to a human. This system has reduced the number of cases that need to be read by a clinician by 2/3. This means happier doctors. After extensive testing, it's been proven that combining the best of human expertise with predictive AI is the way to go. And with further research being done and the code being open sourced, the future is very bright for AI and healthcare. All in all, Google is still doing its best, and Google DeepMind is still one of the world's best. What do you think about Bard or DeepMind's new developments? Let me know in the comments below. In the meantime, click a video on the screen that you haven't seen, and thanks for visiting AI Wizard.